of the journal Play Outdoors, Exploring Outdoor Experiences in Early Years. She's the author and co-author of 7 textbooks that are used in colleges and universities and has many peer-reviewed articles. Her passion is working with educators to advance experiential learning with children. Welcome, Beverly. We're going to get started with territorial acknowledgement and a prayer, and then we'll be able to start our presentation today.
So the Creator gifted us with this land that we are blessed to share and care for together. The Calgary Catholic School District acknowledges that the land we gather in, Mohkinstsis, is the ancestral territory of the Siksika, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, and the Abskai Piikani. We acknowledge all the Treaty 7 signatories, including the Tsuut'ina people, as well as the Arare, Nakota Nations, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley. This land is also the home of Métis Nation Region 3 and all others who call this place home. If you could please place yourself in the presence of our Lord. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for your everlasting almighty love for each and every one of us. You have cared for us and taken us under your wing, all because you love us. You sent your one and only Son to die on the cross to save us from the enemy, all because you love us, Lord, all because you love us. Jesus told us one of the most important rules to follow, which is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Something we are to remember is that if you love us, you will listen to us. So it's the same thing with God. Because we love him, we will listen to him. When we really love someone, you will do anything to save them, just like Jesus did for us on the cross, the ultimate sacrifice. In his name we pray. Saint Leo, pray for us. In the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And that prayer came from Maverick in grade 5 from St. Damian's School.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Kimberly. So hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Leslie. I'm the supervisor of new curriculum implementation, and we are joined here with our early learning team of consultants, as well as Teresa Sorosky, the supervisor of that amazing team of which you all know to some extent. So really big welcome, and just happy to be able to support the work happening around play in kindergarten. And so without further ado, I pass it on to Beverly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn, for the warm welcome, and to all of you that have taken time out of your busy schedule to be here this afternoon. And I do want to begin by indicating that a number of years ago, my little neighbor came to visit me, and she and her brother came generally every Sunday morning, and they would sit on the carpet and we'd feed them potato chips and, have a chat. But they were part of the generation where they only had 20 minutes to spend with us, and they had adopted us as their grand neighbor parents. So I said to Maya one morning, well, what did you learn this week? And she was 6 at the time. She had great big brown eyes and ponytail or piglets in her hair, and she would, it was pretty messy, and because I think she had just gotten up. She said, Miss Beverly, I learned all about the brain this week. I said, really? Yes, she said, there's a left and a right side of the brain. Did you know that, Miss Beverly? I said, I didn't. She said, well, every time you learn something new, Miss Beverly, you get a wrinkle. Did you know that? I said, I didn't know that. And she said, you just got another new wrinkle. So I am hoping that at the conclusion of today, if nothing else happens, you all go home with a new wrinkle, and then you will be joining me in my wrinkle club. This afternoon, we're going to talk about provocations and the importance of provocations used to trigger children's curiosity. And you'll see that many of the examples that I'm going to share are related to the outdoor environment. That doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be translated into your indoor environment, although my passion and my values and belief indicate to me that the outdoors is such an important space and place for children. So provocations, that's such an interesting word, and it's one that we have begun to hear about probably over the past 8 or 10 years. And I'm going to ask you to participate with me this afternoon. So in the chat, or you can come to the mic, when you hear that word provocation and what you know of the term, what does it mean? And how do you currently use provocation to trigger children's curiosity? So let's start by seeing if we can get some thoughts in the chat or come to the mic as to what provocation means. I'll just be silent for a minute as people have an opportunity to find that chat. It looks like a bubble with lines in it. Just click on it and you'll be able to put your thoughts in there. Something new, something interesting and different. Yes, really good thought processes. Something new, something interesting, inviting, the start of an idea. Those are really good thought processes. Someone else. The start of an idea, inviting, all really, really important. Anyone else? Well, let's see if we can add to those really pokes and disrupts. I like that. Yeah, pokes and disrupts. And what we want to do using that poke and disrupt piece is to think about how we can disrupt the current practice of children and the current knowledge to extend their ideas and to extend their I wonder if, I wonder why, I wonder maybe. We really do want to disrupt, because what we're trying to do is advance children's new ways of thinking and seeing. So you can see in this particular photo that it's a tiny container with materials in it that they don't necessarily all belong. But in fact, when you think about this, you may want to go and engage. You may, and as you think about the children in your space and place, they may want to engage with these materials. So when we look at the textbook definition, they're open-ended opportunities without a prescribed outcome. And that's a very important piece, that when we set up these materials that we're putting in our environments to trigger children's sense of curiosity, we don't know what they're going to do. We don't even think about what they're going to do, because we want it to be that exploratory opportunity for the children. When we put ideas in our head thinking this is what the children will do, then we will actually ask children questions and try to get them to do what we want them to do. And that's not the purpose of a provocation. They're designed to stimulate ideas. It's almost like design thinking. We want the children to take some ideas and ideation, and we want them to imagine what is it they can do. We want them to think about, can I take something from there and combine it with something that I have in another part of the space? It really is to contribute to children's observing, exploring, engaging, and creating. And that's a really interesting piece, because often we think as educators, we're to do the observing. We're to observe and say, oh, these are the children's interests, and therefore we must do this. But we want the children always looking at their environment and getting into that space and place of just imagining. So they're very, very simple. They're displayed beautifully to provide interest. And that is a key piece, that you're always trying to figure out, what is it I can do that will cause children to ask, what is this? Why is it there? And this is an absolute fun one where the educator will put bags on the fence with different things in it, and the children can't peek, and they shake them and they imagine what they are. So that this becomes a conversation opportunity for the children. And in fact, this was so popular that the educator actually had a family that made cloth bags from a sustainability perspective. So I'm hoping this afternoon that you will have opportunity when you leave with your new wrinkles to be able to describe the difference between a provocation and an invitation, examine places where you may put those provocations, and analyze how provocations can really extend children's play and the experiences in which they have in the environment to expand their connectedness to learning, their connectedness to play, their ability to engage in new play, new ways of looking at how they can disrupt the previous and add to the new. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder when you see this provocation? I want you to look very, very carefully. What do you see? What are some of the pieces that you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Let's see if we can get 3 or 4 thoughts in the chat. What are you seeing? What's drawing you to this particular provocation? Any thoughts? And again, if you wish to come to the mic, just click your mic and share with us. If not, in the chat, what do you see? Okay, so some shapes. Yes, there are some shapes, and there's exploring with a variety of materials. And that's a really important one. The variety, the textures, the shapes. Anyone else? So those are all really important pieces. And what you will see is that blocks, yes. And we put an array of materials together with the textures using fabric and putting them in places where the children may be drawn to exploring them. So the blocks and the wooden materials, and you can see we're combining a number of materials and that outdoor exploration. So really important that we think about provocations in a variety of shapes and sizes and textures to draw upon opportunities for children to engage in new exploration. For those of you that have not had time for lunch, please have some snacks here. The benefit of these snacks, the coffee will keep you awake if you find me really boring, and the sweets are all calorie-free. So I hope you enjoy them. So it is important when we think of provocations that we're looking at it from the perspective of a cycle of curiosity and our important role in supporting children in having new materials that they can explore. And a provocation, they will explore. They'll want to look, they'll want to see, they'll want to think. What is it they can do? Once they've had that opportunity to look and to explore and observe, then they will start that sense of wonderment and questions. I wonder what I can do with the materials. I wonder why these materials are here. Who put them there? Why are the blocks with the fabric? Why are there storybooks and blocks together? And that's what we want. We want to really intrigue children to think deeply in new ways. Once they have gone through that process, and again, we may not necessarily hear them do this from a verbal perspective, but we can almost watch their brains going. They will begin to experiment and discover. And they need to have opportunities for repetition to test discovery. This is an important piece because sometimes what we as educators do is we'll put a provocation out and then we'll put it away, and tomorrow we'll put something else out. But in fact, we really need to have the provocation for at least a couple of days, if not more. Now, you may want to add something to the provocation, but children need the opportunity to repeat because that's how they learn. Was this just a fluke that I got this response? Or if, as you can see here, if I want to make that snowball, is it always that I have to take my hands, pack the snow, pound it together to get that snowball? I need that repetition so that I know to get this result, it's that cause and effect. This is how they learn cause and effect. So if we take the materials away too quickly, They are not going to go through that process of cause and effect. It is then that they can say, okay, I can do this. I know how to make a snowball. Now I want to get the snowball over to the other area. I'm not going to roll it and roll it. I'm going to take the shovel and I'm going to move it over, because the little munchkin has realized that she can make the snowball, and if something happens to it, she can redo it. She wouldn't move it. She wouldn't take it with the shovel before she had that opportunity to be able to work through in her mind, this is how I make a snowball. This is how they get the confidence and security. So if we are taking the materials away without the children engaging in that cause and effect, then it reduces their opportunity to say, I can do this. I know how to do this. If I do this, I do this. And they need that confidence and security to be a risk taker, to try something new. So really look at the materials, think about how and where you are placing them and what access children have to them. It is from there that they will have new questions, new ideation, because they have that self-confidence to be able to move forward. So whenever we think of provocations, we think about how might this support the cycle of curiosity. We may add materials to the provocations so that we're continuing to trigger new ways of opportunities and thinking. So again, materials, provocations are materials that are placed in the environment to trigger children's interest and to see what ideas they come up with. So of course, we thought when we put the plungers out that the children were going to take the plungers and it was going to be a scientific moment. They were going to splash them. They were going to see how high the splashes went. They were going to feel the suction piece. We had it all worked out that it was going to be this magical science moment. And they did to some extent. The little munchkin put it in. She tried to figure out how she could make ripples, which was different. We had thought that it would be splashes, just thinking of a little munchkin, but she was more inclined to figure out how could she make ripples. And then we saw that to say a provocation helps us to see children's thinking. And as this little munchkin kept engaging in trying to make these ripples, that was a trigger for us to talk about, to put language to the word. I see you're making ripples. Tell me how you're doing that. What is the movement that you are doing? And this helps us then to move forward in examining new materials, perhaps, that can be combined. Well, some other munchkins got involved, and as you can see on the left-hand side, they used the plungers in very different ways, using them on the side. And again, we hadn't thought of that, but these little munchkins weren't interested in ripples. They were interested in the bubbles. What was the movement that they needed to do with the bubbles? Then you can see the second group, they decided that they were going to make a band. So they removed them from the area and took them to the cylinder, and they had a fabulous band of going up and down with the plungers. Now the plungers then led to this kind of play. So again, we had not seen these children engage with this tunnel other than going through it. And this was the first that we saw them using it for a different purpose. Well, you can see that the little munchkins decided, to tip it up, which was a new experience for them, and then to get inside. So that's what you want. You want the children making those decisions, those aha moments. What can I do with these materials? I'm not sure, and we can't say for sure, I'm not sure this play would have evolved had they not initially been engaged with the music session that they had with the plungers. So from a plunger, we went from a plunger in water to a music to now making what we call affinity spaces and places. Well, these little munchkins, they took the plungers even further. And unbeknown to us initially, this little munchkin took two of them, and she decided to get on this belly mover, whatever you call it. I can never remember the name of it. And look what she did. How could we have imagined when we put the plungers out that this is what was going to happen? So again, as educators, we need to be open and to really stand back and support the children in having such incredible, incredible opportunities. You know, we think when we look at it, oh, this little munchkin's painting. But in fact, look at the face, look at the determination, look at the body movements that are occurring. Look at how she has gone to make the double circles in her experience. And then you can see this led to other children engaging in a similar experience. And often we look at this and we say, this is the power of children engaging in peer opportunities. One munchkin does it, and it leads us to other children having such a fabulous experience. So what we want to do as we put out these provocations is understand that children are building their theories of learning. And we look at it from the child in the center. They're building theories about things around their environment. They're testing their ideas. They're constructing, they're deconstructing, and it's hands-on exploration. And what this means for us is we have a very important role of watching, observing, thinking about how we move play forward. So I want you in the chat to put a couple of thoughts of what you saw in those previous slides and what might happen next. If you look at what the children did, what might you add to that provocation to support the children in building a theory or a testing? How might you expand that opportunity for their play? Let's see if we can get 3 or 4 ideas into the chat. Any thoughts? Cause and effect. So a very important piece. How might we be able to do that to get additional cause and effect? And we may have discussions with the children on this. Tell us what you did first. How did you get this effect? And that's really important, Lisa, that we ask the children those questions. How did you make this happen? Can you tell me about it? Anyone else? Are there particular provocations that you may add with the plungers? Adding colored water. So that would be a very interesting piece, and that would change children's perspective for sure. And it's building on the water, it's building on the play, it's advancing them to look at, how come some of the puddles are clear? Sometimes when we move the plungers, it gets mucky. And then if we add color, what happens? And buckets or boxes, fabulous ways to, again, support the children in that constructing of new learning opportunities. So you can see here that again, my colleague uses a significant amount of fabric when she's setting up her provocations. What do you notice about it? When you look at this provocation, what draws you to it? Let's see if we can get a couple of ideas. What draws you? What are you thinking as you see this? Loose parts, really important piece. Loose parts are part of the provocation piece, and it's the color, it's the attractiveness of the color and the literature. So you're drawn to the size and number of items. So often when we look at books as an example, and we will put them in a book rack, or we'll put them in a basket, and it changes children's desire when they find books in a variety of places. So it's warm, it's inviting, it's variety. It's a very there are many, many pieces that the children can actually draw upon. They may not use any of the books. They may use other items, or they may use the books in ways to spark their sense of curiosity. What do you see here? What's one thing that you're attracted to? Bet you didn't know you were going to have to participate so much this afternoon. What are you drawn to? What is your aha moment when you look at this? Is there any of these ideas that are intriguing to you? And if so, why? Hands-on learning, the telephone thing, the mirror table, something new. And that's a really important piece. You will see in a lot of the work that we do, we actually get, and I'm not doing an advertisement, but I will tell you that we often get the glass, the non-breakable glass from Speedy Auto Glass. And I don't know if there is a franchise in Calgary. They are fabulous. We put the glass outdoors, the mirrors outdoors, because it helps children with reflection. It's science built in. It changes how they move. It enhances their visual acuity, and it increases the way in which they engage in creativity. So anytime we can engage with mirrors, that is an important piece. And you can see the plumber's pipes, that's what they are, with fabric. And again, we do that just to see what we can get the children to do. What will the dialogue be? And again, part of provocation is to advance children's language skills. Oh, what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Anyone intrigued by this? So you can see that silky fabric. This silky fabric is of particular importance to many children that have sensory challenges, or you're trying to advance their self-confidence in sensory materials. Many children that are on the spectrum love this fabric. So it's a silky fabric, and then you can see this is a progressive provocation where we've added some items and then we keep adding to it. And again, that's to spark the children to return and to see and to have that aha moment. Look what's there now. So when children come to the program, they'll want to go and see, is anything added today? What might there be? So as you can see, many of them, and I'm going to be sharing lots and lots of photos with you in the next few minutes. They're simple, they're displayed beautifully to provoke interest. And that is the key as we go forth to look at how can we set these up. Again, it is important that we bring some natural attributes to the environment. This was a way in which an educator was actually in trying to have children look at their environment. And this was a way in which she did it. It's really important to know the difference between a provocation and an invitation. And often educators will use these words interchangeably. They are very, very different concepts. So as you saw earlier, a provocation is to provoke ideas. It's really to trigger that thinking with the children. Whereas an invitation encourages children to think about or explore a specific concept. Provocation is open, loose parts. There is no defined idea that the educator has. An invitation is more specific, whereby the educator is hoping that you will explore this, this, or this. Provocations are created with the children's interest, or perhaps not the children's interest, because we're trying to provoke new ideas. We are trying to build on the children's theory. We're looking at ways in which we can have them look at their environment and engage in things that they may not have put together before. So they may have played with blocks over here. They may have engaged with fabric over here, and we're blending them together. Provocations must be open-ended, and this is important because provocations have no right or wrong, and therefore they support children in advancing, I can do this. I can do this. Look what I can do. And provocations are to provoke thinking. So again, very important, provoke thinking to advance that curiosity. The invitation, and again, there's no right or wrong of provocation invitations. Although when we look at preschool children, we really want to have a balance and probably far more provocations than invitations. So an invitation encourages the child to engage in experience that the educator thinks the child should engage in with specific materials. Here are the materials, you use these. An invitation could include a question, and again, that is often required to help children get an idea and to spark an idea. And it's most often based on our wonderings, not the child's, because we're setting it up, we're posing the question, we're putting the message there. And it is certainly a way to offer children a new interest that guides their interest. So when we look at the difference, as you can see on the left-hand side, there are no words. There's no message from the educator. That would be a provocation. Whereas on the right-hand side, you see a note. What can you see? So automatically, even though the child may not have the language, they know there is a message. They know that there is something that is expected of them. And as a result, sometimes children will not go to an invitation area, particularly children with lower self-esteem. So think about that. Children that are on the autism spectrum, they probably will not go to that area. They need the freedom of materials. Okay, so the moment we put a note, then we are identifying to the child, this is the expectation of the educator. We have often done this. We want the children to learn about yellow. So we put all this yellow stuff out. And again, that would be an invitation from the educator. We want you to explore yellow. So you really have to weigh this to say, is this what you want to have happen? And if it is, then absolutely include invitations. If it is that more free-flowing thoughts and exploration and triggering children's curiosity to take the ideas in their direction, it would be a provocation. What is this? Is this an invitation or a provocation? Put in the chat. What do you see? Is it an invitation or a provocation? Okay, so we're seeing some with the provocation, some are saying both. Yes, those are really, really good comments. Provocation. Okay, provocation is actually an invitation. Now, why is it an invitation? Oh, we're getting some invitations now. Why is it an invitation and not a provocation? Anyone like to come to the mic to identify why? It's directed. Absolutely. It is directed. You must go use the materials on the scrolls or on the designs. So again, this may be very important if you're trying to support a child with regard to fine motor development. But otherwise, look at why are you putting this out? What is the purpose? And is that what you are intending? Because if you're thinking that this is going to expand children's creativity, it may not give you the same result as if you had a blank paper and the rocks. Children may do something very different. Okay. Again, very much invitations. As you can see, are you feeling happy or sad? Here are the colors. This is what we want you to do. So this would be an invitation. So here, what is it? An invitation or a provocation? It is an invitation. Can you stack 5 rocks? So again, the child sees the educator wants me to stack 5 rocks. And as you can see in the photo, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's very clearly saying to the child, this is what you are to produce. Interesting provocation, as you can see, materials set up at a tiny, tiny spot in the play area with a box with materials. They don't match. There's no rhyme nor reason to them. And again, that's to trigger ideation. And that's an important part of supporting children in that design thinking. And it is very much a provocation. Again, what do you see? Is it a provocation or an invitation? Provocation, absolutely. So materials, there is no defined area. What is important in this is that it's a stump. And sometimes we have stumps and we leave them thinking they're for children to climb or to crawl on. Imagine what happens when you put materials and use that as a place for children to explore. Okay. This is a really interesting provocation, as you can see. Again, there is a mirror in the container, and this is so children can see that reflective component. You will see that there are different sized pieces of apparatus for the children to use. There is no direction at all as to what they are going to do. What is important is we don't often provide children with this kind of an experience where they can see what is happening. Sometimes if we're thinking of a sink and float, it's in a container and they only see it from this way. Whereas when it is in a transparent container, it really changes children's thinking. Okay. So remember, our role as educators is to provide the children with the interesting materials. It is really for us to pose those open-ended questions at the right time. So we want to stand back, we want the children to explore, and then from there, we model the use of vocabulary. So this is how we bring our language and literacy in. We have debriefing conversations with the children, and that's a really important piece because that helps them engage in that reflection, and it encourages them to really think about what have they discovered, that repetition piece that is important. And we offer them opportunities by adding new provocations. And what this means is we put a provocation here, and there might be a different provocation in another part of our space for that triggering of opportunity. So you'll see provocations are set up, and then the educator engages in ... Fill in those ... What is your role once you have actually set up the provocation? Fill in the dots. Those of you that know Anne of Green Gables, she was the person that brought ... to us. And then we engage in discussion. Yes, keep going. We engage in questioning. We engage in the observation and the conversation. All of these at the right time. So we never want to disrupt children's play, and we really want them to take it to the fullest. And then usually at the end of the day, we'll want to engage in those observations and conversations. Here is an interesting provocation. As you can see, the educator has taken a container and we use multiple containers. She's put fabric and different materials in it, ducks, as you can see, so that it engages children in new thinking, new ways of looking at materials, of combining and determining what they're going to use. This is a really important piece, picture frames and fabric. It is particularly important for children to be working on white or very light blue fabric. Because again, what we're trying to do is change their image of their thinking. We really want to have their left and right brain side of the brain working together at the same time. And this changes it because they have a defined space that they have to create in. And this is how flexible thinking occurs. So again, where are your frames and then the materials, and see what the children do. Interesting, you can see that this is on a cement piece. Or actually, this is sand, this particular one, and it's just items that have been put there. Now, you may say, well, it's not very beautiful because Beverly, you just said it needed to be beautiful. It's beautiful in its own way because of the different feeling that the children get from the wood. Again, using wood is an important piece. For some centers, we ask families if they have wood or if they are out walking on the weekend and they see wood, if they would gather the pieces for us, if it is appropriate to take. And then you can see that having these different shapes of wood changes the creativity. And remember that the creativity, developing children's creativity, is vital for them. For the enhancement of language, the enhancement of science, math, and the overall ability to become storytellers. So our role is to be enhancing opportunities for children to embark on a creative moment. You can see that this educator, she comes to my garden actually every fall and cuts the dry flowers. She dries them, and then they are used all throughout the fall and winter. This is a way, again, of having families involved in the program because instead of them putting it in the green bin, families very much appreciate being able to offer the program something without cost. So as you can see, provocations offer a range of items, and they are linked together to provide children with a jumping off point. That's the key, the jumping off point. And there's no wrong as a result of a provocation. So just that jumping off, what will the children do with the materials? And for these children, they became really intrigued with how they could use flowers, pieces of flowers that were conducive to being able to be taken out of the environment. Again, a different way to have children start to engage in peer development. And this is important as well when we think of preschoolers, younger children. How is it that we can have that socialization and support them in co-creating and co-discussing ideas? So this is just fabric with a whole lot of different loose parts put out, and fascinating how the children will start on their own and then engage with each other. Again, a provocation. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you imagine? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you imagine? Any thoughts? Any aha moments? So what is really interesting as we see if anyone's going to put something in the chat, you will see that there is a crocheted doily. And that is really important that we offer children artifacts. And that particular doily actually is over 100 years old. It was made by my mother, actually, and it's a way in which I share with children materials and things from my childhood that can have them think about, who is your mother? Do you have a mother? And to engage in those discussions, meanwhile providing their environment with a different feel. So again, you can see that this provocation, metal tweezers are fun, absolutely. And you can see that that has added exploration of the children with the sunflower to the point that it became a very long project with the children. This went on for forever and ever and ever. And again, you can see that the educator used some of the materials and put them in very different places for the children so that they would be expanding their opportunity of exploration. So when we think about provocations in play space, we really want to ensure that we're offering opportunities to get an understanding of the learning process. So not only are they for the children to expand their thinking and learning, but it is for us as educators to really see how the children are learning. What is it they are learning? How are they approaching provocations? It really is building that trust and respect for the children. It provides that safe space for them. And it's a way in which we invest in triggering children's curiosity, building on their interest and supporting them in exploration. That's our role. We are architects, and remember this, your role is to be an architect of contributing to the child's brain development. So, you're not a brain surgeon, you're a brain architect for these little munchkins, and you're contributing to how their brain is going to expand. You are contributing to how children are going to learn, and not only learn now, but futuristic. So think about that important role every time you are doing something. How will this contribute to the architecture of this little munchkin's brain? Deep inside the thinking of children lies the fairy dust of education, meaningful engagement, and that's what provocations do. Remember, when we think about provocations, it's to focus and the attention are key to developing the pathways to the brain. So the provocations give children the opportunities to attend the world of ideas. Isn't that lovely? You are providing the children with an opportunity to attend the world of ideas and concepts. So as you set up your provocations, think about that, the world of ideas. As a brain contributor, architect, you are supporting them in the world of ideas. Very interesting. Imagine if you found a basket with all those presents. What might you want to do? And again, that really triggers conversation with the children. So remember that this is the provocations curate children's new language. It requires them to use inquiry in new ways. It supports them in making connections of what they know and how to communicate. It supports them in different ways of play. It really offers them a sense of wonderment. It really is a way in which they create new beginnings. Interesting provocations. Look at the materials. I do want to emphasize on the left-hand side, the cedar that was taken, it was actually from a branch that fell. So we do teach children about the whole environmental stewardship and caring for the plants. You can see here that these are paint chips. Some of the paint stores where I live think I'm an interior designer because I'm always going to get paint chips. We just put the paint chips by the tree just to see what the children would do. And then the children moved the mirror over and really started to look at the colors and to see what happens when it was on the mirror. And then that led the children actually to this experience. So again, a trigger point here just by placing them, and then it followed through with the children in new ways. Provocations are simple. So these are just hooks, shower curtain hooks on a board, and we put things in it just to see what the children would do. What would the conversation be when they found them? And that's what we wanted. Is it going to trigger them to do something? Are they going to put other rocks, or just what are they going to do? Again, sometimes we take our containers. So if you have sand tables, if you have water tables, and you're always putting sand and water in them, what would happen if you used them for something different? How might that trigger new ways of opportunity for the children? How can you make that happen? And again, this one, as you can see, is just the container with the items. You may want to put fabric on it again to draw the children's eyes. On here, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just a frame, it's material, it's a clipboard, it's a basket with things. What are the children going to do? We don't know. We don't know if they're going to leave them there, if they're going to take them to other spaces and places. And again, that's the beauty. You must be prepared that your provocation is not to stand still, that the children are able and should be able to move pieces and the actual provocation to different spaces. Okay. Again, you can see just different items. What is interesting is the display. So how are you displaying your materials to get children to look at the environment in new ways? Those of you that have gutter pipes, really, really important as a provocation, gutters and balls or whatever you have available, and then see how science and math occur. Look at gravity, look at movement. What better way can we bring science to the lives of children? This is a fun one where the educator actually took a table and she got a sod, a grass sod. And the children had just amazing experiences with it. And they actually learned to water it and keep it alive. And then it became an incredible provocation space and place. And they were always, always intrigued by it. And just, where are you putting your provocations? How are you displaying them? How might you trigger children's thoughts? You may be putting them in a basket with different materials and put the basket in various spots outside. How does that change children's thinking? How does it advance children in becoming interested in books because it's not on the bookshelf? And again, they may use the book as a trigger point for them. Sometimes what we do is offer opportunities for thinking. This educator kept taking photos of the children's boots, and then she made a display, and she put the display outside for the children to see. And it was really to get them thinking. And as you can see, there are boots that are quiet boots, there's splashy boots. It was a conversation component for them. Different ways of displaying, particularly on the right-hand side, we often have these wood pieces, but we may not put it on a dowel. And the beauty of this is not only are children attracted to it, it's movable, and it also becomes a piece of art when they're not using it. We must not forget about rocks and how important they can be as provocations. Children love rocks. Some of you are going to say, no, 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 they're going to throw them. In fact, they will have a great deal of respect for them when we provide them in this way. You might want to combine the tree cookies and the rocks together. Again, you can see they are on fabric. If you get any snow, I'm sure there will be a little bit more snow in Calgary. Put the provocations that are not, that you usually wouldn't put out. If you have fly swatters and plungers and flowers, just put them on the picnic table or put them somewhere and see what the children do. Again, you can see that some of these provocations are in tiny containers. How can you do that? It is important if you can to put plants near your provocations because that changes the oxygen. It increases the quality of the children's breathing and of course the oxygen to the brain, which enhances the use of their brain right and left side. Just sparkles, as you can see, and again, putting them on different spaces and places for children. You may see this as an invitation because there are photos hanging up. In fact, those photos are of construction pieces that the children had made, but it would probably be considered more of a provocation or an invitation than a provocation. And again, you can see where you take flower pots and use them frequently, We do encourage that any of these items, if it's a flower pot, that you get them on wheels so the children can move them, that they're not stationary. And again, that's to advance the whole notion of children's movement. So at the beginning, I identified that at the conclusion today, you would have a thorough understanding of what is meant by provocation and places and spaces you may put them and how provocations influence children's play and experience. And I'm hoping that as I take my screen down, that we can have some discussions. And again, for those of you that are interested, this is the outdoor magazine that is part of my world. So I'm going to stop screening, or stop, I hope not, I haven't been screaming, stop presenting, and I'm going to open it for questions. What are your aha moments? What are you thinking? What new information have you acquired? What inspires you? Anyone like to respond? Again, feel free to come to the mic or put your thoughts in the chat.
Hi, it's Lynn. I am not an early learning teacher, and full disclosure, I always defer to the early learning team. But I think what was really connected to me is we live a lot in the invitation world as educators with that sort of outcome and end in mind. And I think bringing value to the provocation and that process of inquiry is something that is of equal value. And so how do we look to balance that in our work? That was something that jumped out at me.
That's a really good point, Lynn. And as we think about trying to support these 21st century learners, it is that flexibility of thinking that needs to occur, which means from an educator's perspective, we as the adults have to reduce our impact of saying to the children, we're going to do this now, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, because they become very dependent on educators then for their thinking. So this is why provocations and this whole notion of using the cycle of curiosity as a foundation for our work is important. Because if we're continuing to ask questions and to say to the children, today we're going to do this, and we're going to put this material away because we have to get this outcome met, then we're reducing that opportunity. Now, what I'm not saying that we don't meet the learning outcomes. We look at learning outcomes and the importance of learning outcomes through provocations and through new lens of how it can be illustrated in children's play. And that's why there is such a move for provocations, pedagogical documentation that is informed with dialogue with children and families, and learning stories. Danielle's saying learning the difference between invitation and provocation. And it's a very important piece, and I appreciate you identifying that, Danielle. I'm wondering about how to prepare provocation for 24 children, managing and collecting items, the space, how it is set up. Can the items be reused for a second group in the afternoon? Yeah, that's a really interesting one. And what I would recommend is if you open your cupboards, you probably have materials that you can use already, because when you look at some of the examples I had, much of it you would find in your early learning programs. And the items can be reused for the second group, or alternatively, sometimes what we do, we set up a provocation in a wagon. And I didn't have any photos of that, but I can send them to Lynn and she could forward them to you. So we set up the provocation in the wagons, and then the children use them. So we have one wagon for the morning group, and we have perhaps a different provocation in a different wagon for the afternoon. And then it allows us to, again, bring that provocation back to the children the next day. I hope that helps.
You could even have a conversation between the classes if they pick up where one group left off between provocations.
Other questions or thoughts?
Yes.
Oh, I think I've
There
just
is.
triggered. I've just triggered our conversation. That is wonderful. Yes, Wonder Wagons are very, very important to the work that we do with children. So again, let me see if I can send Lynn some. Oh, of course, the Wonder Wagon. Let's get some more wagons. Oh, good. So Lynn will love me forever because there will be requests. Could we buy wagons? But yes, Wonder Wagons
They already are. So Leslie can speak a little bit to that, maybe, the Wonder
Yes.
Wagons.
So we
Great.
are working with Matt, who is working as the physical education and wellness curriculum coordinator to get every elementary school, elementary, junior high school, a wagon for the school. And then Beverly, we have a couple of Wonder Wagons that we've put together that are in our kind of library that teachers can take out. And so we're working on changing the materials that we have to be like kits that teachers can take out that are just sort of open-ended materials with literature that can be used as kind of a provocation for teachers. So yeah.
Neat. Oh, that's really, really neat. So Wonder Wagons are so magical for children. And it's a way, again, in being able to change the environment very quickly. You can have Wonder Wagons indoors, outdoors, and sometimes what we do to really add to that sense of curiosity, we'll have the Wonder Wagon already and we'll have a sheet over it. And then we get the children to guess, what are they going to see? I don't know, we have to wait. And we'll have a group of children decide. They'll go out into the outdoor space and decide where the Wonder Wagon should be based on what they think is underneath. So again, you're always trying to get those children into that magical thinking because that increases their desire to engage and embrace.
So I think with that point, as we near to the end here, I have to point out, if you wouldn't mind, Teresa, just grabbing those boxes. So Teresa came into the meeting space with a couple of boxes, and I have to say, it was quite intriguing. Nobody else knew about this. None of us know what are in the boxes, and I have to tell you, we're so excited to figure out like what's in those boxes and where our next steps are going to be. And so we are really excited, just to those of you who are able to join us today on this PG, to be moving. Again, this was sort of our provocation into moving into our professional learning communities, which many of you I know have signed up for. So just a reminder, those are March 8th, April 20th, and May 16th. So if you have not filled out that Google Doc, please reach out to your EL consultant and they will help to coordinate that with you, because we would really love to continue this conversation around provocation and really looking forward to sort of continuing to play in this space around that cycle of curiosity. And again, I think we talk a lot about cycle of inquiry, but really I think bringing it to that area of curiosity and being brain architects, like you say, we're really helping to form brains and creating those spaces for creativity to occur. So just on behalf of all of us, just a huge thank you to you, Beverly, for coming out today. And we are so excited to continue this work. And yeah, we just look forward to our PLCs and having teachers coming out to join us and sharing their excitement and their learning around this work of play. So thank you so much. And I know we'll be in the chat for a bit longer. So if there's any other questions you might have, we're happy to answer those. But just a huge thank you to you, Beverly, and of course to Teresa and the EL team for providing this opportunity and reminder of how important it is for play in our early learning classes. So thank you so much.
So Lynn, can you shake the boxes so we can have a sense of what they sound like?
Now you. So we're shaking.
Oh, what do you think is in it? Do they sound the same? We can't really hear. Oh, are they heavy? Like, how heavy are they? Oh, medium, medium. All right. And can you peek in and show us one thing that might be in it? Just one. Just put your hand in. Don't look at the. Oh, a stick. Is there something? Oh, a book. Okay.
So
So
that's our carrot for PLCs as so
That
sign up,
is-
get your friends to sign up, and they're limited spots. So we just invite you to sign up or reach out to your Yale consultant if you need more information. And I know many of you need to go. So thank you so much. And Beverly, thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
us in this great work.
Okay, bye for now, everyone. Have a great afternoon. And again,
Bye
thank you
now.
for
Bye-bye.
spending your time with me. Bye-bye.